Okay, so this is a normalization test set up for 2013. And one of the important things in normalizations is that we often set down scenarios, and a lot of the time what the scenario deals with reflects a lot with your design. So this items here is important that you read through and you actually get an understanding of. I'm not going to go through this in too much detail. I want to pause this video and just highlight a couple of key terms after I've read it, because I haven't seen this for years. The first items are simple. They're pretty much a regurgitatory definitions. A partial dependency is a field which is dependent on part of a key of the composite key field. Now, when we talk about I could even just say here the key field, because remember, every single database requires a key field. Now, the big thing with the idea of the key, meaning that it's the field that uniquely identifies it. Now, a composite key field would be if it's for it to be only part of the composite key field, a key field. The field would actually have to be a composite key field. Does that make sense? Which means it consists of more than one field. So it will only be dependent on one of the multiple key fields. So the main marks there is we're taking a look for the field that is dependent on any part of a key field. And I know that we don't like using a question in the answer here, but quite frankly, you could say one of the multiple composite key fields, something like that, if you don't want to directly use the word part, because part is also in the question, although technically this is the direct definition, it's only available part of the key field. Okay, so that would be the answer there. You would pretty much, I've bolded where you would actually be given the mark for. You'd probably be given a mark for the idea that you're working with part, or in another definition you could say is a field which is dependent on one of the multiple fields composing the composite key field. And then in which case it would be the one of the multiple kind of thing would be the marks there. Multiple key fields kind of thing. So it depends on how you want to word it, but it's the same thing, just in different English, pretty much. Now, a transitive dependency is a field which is dependent on a non-key field. So the words here would be looking for the idea of dependence and looking for the idea of the non-key. So the fact that it's dependent on a non-key. Do you guys get that?
So what's that keyboard shortcut?
I actually set up it myself. I allocated a shortcut key of Control-Shift-T to the tick, because I use it quite regularly. And I'm just going to bold the answers. So yes, it's not, generally speaking, it's, that definition is easy enough. This is all just definitions, okay? That's the first section that's getting asked here. So what is a primary key field? It is a field which will uniquely identify a record in a table. Okay, that would be one mark. And it says, why do we need one? To ensure we can refer to an individual record. Does that kind of make sense? I think there might be better English to put that in. My English is not always the best in way to word things. But literally all you're doing there is you're ensuring that you can refer to an individual record instead of, you would want a field to go, okay, I'm referring to this person sold the car, this person bought the car. So you can't go, okay, we're not sure if it was this John or that John. It's just a John. You have to be able to uniquely identify which John it is. Okay, now we talk about Josh's solution. Now Josh drew up this solution, and he drew up this. Now the first question it asks there is what normal form is this database in, and sadly it's got all these red squiggly lines, which is annoying. So it hides a lot of the. So I'm just going to go to do the ignore all. Damn, so blue underlines, you miserable kid. Okay, let me pause this. So, I know. Now, what we got here, firstly, in our heads, we should know off by heart our rules. So let's take a look at our rules. What are, good day. Our rules are as follows. Let me just pause this video. Alright, so first normal form, what are the requirements? PK, meaning that it must have a primary key, right? And it must have no repeated groups. First, second normal form, guys, this stuff is regurgitatory. This stuff you should just know off by heart. Second normal form means that it must have it must be in first, and no, you're right with what you said, and no partial dependencies. Second normal form, sorry, third normal form, NF should be, must be in second NF and no transitive dependencies. So now let's take a look at this, and you can often be asked to draw up a dependency diagram. In this case, I don't think I did, but okay, did I later on? Now it says there, what normal form is this? I'm actually putting this the wrong way. Let me rather do it vertically. Damn it! I don't want miserable guts. No.
Sir is discovering how to use Windows 10.
Now, so if we take a look at this table, one, are there primary keys? Does it have a primary key? Primary key is indicated by being underlined. If it's underlined, it means it's primary key. So in this case, we have a composite key field because it's SA name, which is a sales agent name, VIN number, and date of sale are all comprised to be the composite key field. So it does have a PK. So this one, yes. We now go to the second one. No repeated groups. No, there's no repeated groups there. A repeated group will be if they were make 1, make 2, make 3, make 4, or sale amount 1, sale amount 2, or whatever like that. So there's no repeated groups. So yes, we know it is in first normal form. We've ticked those. But now, is there any partial dependencies? And the answer is there are partial dependencies, isn't there? Because SA sale contact directly has to do with SA name. It has nothing to do directly with the vehicle number or the date of sale. SA contact or sales agent contact has to do with SA name. It's got nothing to do with the rest of the table. Do you guys get that? So in this case, you would justify it is in first norm. We can actually even just say, I'm going to do the shorthand. Well, first NF has a PK and no repeated groups. Okay. Now the marks would actually be given in a normal test. In this test, I think I worked it slightly differently, but normally I would give you a marks for that, and then I'd give you a mark for but contains partial . So in other words, you need to justify exactly why it is in first and why it's not in second. And the same thing would happen if it's in third normal form or in second normal form. You need to justify up the chain, and you'll be given a mark for your justifications. I think in this scenario, I did give a mark for the actual first normal form, as well as then the justification, the other 3 marks. Does that make sense? So you're justifying why. So you would get given a mark for the what normal form it is, but then you'll need to substantiate. In this case, it has a PK, it has no repeated groups, and has partial dependencies. That contains partial dependencies. Does that make sense? So I've disqualified it. Okay, now which of these fields are set as primary keys? In this case, it would be SA name, comma. What was the other one? VIN, I think, and then the other one was the date of sale. Okay, so those were the 3 that were there. Same thing would be awarded here. So this is easy enough. Literally, you would only get given 1 mark if you actually did write all of them. So all 3 of them together would refer as 1 mark. And you'd have to, if you wanted to uniquely identify that field, you have to be referring to all 3 of them. Okay, what is the, I'm going to minimize this for now because we don't need that right now. If we take a look at this, what is it called when more than one field is used? What's the term?
Composite key.
Oh, hello. That's the wrong one. Alright. Give a more descriptive field name than SA name and SA contact. That could be sales agent. And this is why it would be important that you read the scenario, because then you would realize that the SA meant sales agent name. And it is suggested when you do name fields, you name it something like that. There's also other people who like to rather work like this. So they will not.
Difficult to use that.
It is, however, with case-sensitive ones, it can be certain things like MySQL forces everything to be small letters. It doesn't allow for any capital letters because of the whole case-sensitive issue. But whereas personally, if you keep to a convention, it should be fine anyway. But yeah, okay. Now, obviously, then you would have sales agent name. Do I need to put that in? Yes, no. Yes, no. Nobody talking to me.
Yes.
Oh, there's nobody talking to me. The question was, do I need to put in a sales agent contract for the second option? Because I just gave an alternative option with underscores, but I only put the name down, not the actual. I mean, it's more to make you understand that. Okay, Frank's solution. I'm going to put this on a new page so we can put the answer in the same place. We're talking about this. Now, here's the solution, and I put an example data. Now, we're going to go back to our... No, man. Windows key up. You miserable git. Windows key up. No. Tile windows vertically. Cascade windows. Tiles stacked. No. That's not the solution I was looking for.
So,
Google it, sir.
okay, so push the window into the top right hand corner of the screen.
Cascade.
No,
Damn it. Wait, top right.
Push into the top right into
Let me pause. Alright, so we're going to take a look at Frank's solution, and we've got to identify which normal form it is. Now, you see, I also gave example data here because it is quite important to see the example data. Now, this person, Frank, has separated it into two different tables, TVL vehicles and TVL sales. And it says, what, if any normal form is this table, and justify your answer. And in this case, if we take a look at our first table, everything's fine there. It's got a primary key. So yes, it has a primary key. Yes, this also has a primary key. So both tables have primary key. Tick. So this one is correct. The next thing that we've got to do is we've got to check, does it have repeated groups? And unfortunately, if we look here, vehicles sold by this agent has got a repeated group because it's got multiple vehicles that this sales agent has sold and multiple values the sales agent has sold. So what you're looking at there is, yes, in this case, it does have it has a repeated group. So now when you justify your answer, you're going to say it is a no NF, and the reasoning behind, so you would have got given 1 mark for the fact that you told me it was a no NF. The marks would have then be awarded for it does have a primary key, okay, and then the other mark would have been awarded for however it contains a repeated group. Now, there was an error in the setting of this paper, my fault. The error is that now I've given 3 marks allocated here, and this is a 100% correct answer, but yet there's 4 marks allocated. Now, in an exam, that might freak you out a little bit. What I would suggest you do, in the marking, I would have probably just allocated a 2nd mark to the no repeated groups or something like that. In an exam, if there's 4 marks, just to make sure you're going to get the marks, I would then say, as it does not meet criteria for first NF, it is impossible to get second NF.
Double S.
Or
And CRITERIA.
okay. Now, so you could have put something like that in there as well, or you could have substantiated with partial dependencies there or whatever it is. Just added an additional thing there because you generally want to speak in. This is the practice you should get into any exam, theory exam specifically. You want to be able to put down the number of points that there is marked, because there's normally a mark per a point that you give. Do you guys get that? So you generally speaking would want to do that. Okay, so I can close this again and maximize everything, so that whole mission was all for a very short period. But now, on the next question, it says, give 2 types of anomaly this design could justify by giving an example. Use the example of data given. So now we know we have 3 different types of anomalies. They're delete. I'm just going to put the anom because you guys don't know what it means. There's an update one, anom, and then there's a insert anom. Okay. So now if we were looking at a delete anom, so now remember it's a max of 4 marks. So each one of these will be given a max a mark. So there's max 2 marks for type. Do you guys get that? I would only allow 2 marks for the actual thing, and the other 2 marks would be for the definitions. Or for an example, I would not be, if you put down all 3, I would not give you 3 out of 4 because you put down all 3. It's 2 marks for, I would actually probably word it as such. Oops, fail. Hey, maybe that's a good idea. Yeah, so what I would probably have done is at the top here I would have said control type times 2. You guys get that? Or maybe I could put the type 1, type 2 would be the way I would represent the memo. So type 1, type 2, and then there will be a control shift T next to type 2, control shift T next to type 1. Example type 1. So it's very important you guys start recognizing how teachers mark your papers. It helps you a lot when you're answering your papers. This is how I would have marked it. Do you guys get that? So you would have then had to have come up with. So let's look at a delete anomaly. A delete anomaly is where more data is deleted than intended. So for example, Jason Keefe leaves your company and is deleted from your database. All sale records that he made would also be deleted unintentionally. And if you want, you can refer to sale I.E.sale of 1AB2J. So you see basically what I've done there is I've given a definition of what in the scenario I've been very specific to an entry in the database, and I've said this is what's happened, this is what is unintentional here. Now truth be told, if you in any database you should never ever delete data like that. If Jason Keefe left your company, you should have a field somewhere that says, okay, his employment dates were from this date to this date, because you should have record for what he did in the past anyway. So you would never actually delete him. So potentially the scenario is a little bit, but remember we're dumbing it down for matric levels. But generally speaking,
You ever heard a teacher say we're dumbing it down for matric?
well, you have now. Now,
We need 100% pass rate.
well, what are you talking about? I want an 80% average here. We might have trouble. Now, the next thing we got here is an update anomaly, and the update anomaly. Okay, let's take a look at here. Let's say, what if the sale of the vehicle for 89,000 needed to be updated. Okay, so let's say, okay, the sale of 2CB8K ended up being for a less amount and got 85,000 only. When updating this, the second value for the second, so this is 1AB, okay, when updated to say 50,000, the value for the 1AB to J could be lost. Could be lost completely. So if you try to update just the 53,000, it would either not update the 53,000 to 5,000, or it would override it. Do you guys get that? The override the 89,000, it would just be there. So you can't just update that 53,000 by itself. So that's an anomaly that would occur. An insert anomaly. What if I wanted to add now a new sale? It's very difficult to add because there is no such thing as an add here. So if I wanted to insert a new sale, if I wanted to insert, because now this does require a little bit of understanding of SQL statements. There's an update statement and there's an SQL statement. An update is where you will change an existing record, and an insert is when you want to add a new record. So if I want to insert a new sale for Jason Keefe, comma, the insert statement new sale would not be unique as Jason Keefe is already a record. Does that make sense? So in other words, what I've done there is the insert statement would not be able to insert a new record without it being unique. To actually insert a new sale, you do an update, which is incorrect. That's not an insert. An insert normally is when you're actually doing an insert, and you should be able to, if there's a new person coming to sell, if there's a new sale, you should insert a new sale. You shouldn't be updating something that already exists. It just becomes tricky and stupid then. Alright, now I know you guys would never think about designing this table from the get-go. If you got given that scenario on it by itself, you wouldn't have thought about designing it like this. But part of this process is the idea of taking existing solutions and analyzing them, and then from there improving them. Does that kind of make sense? So it's not just about designing the perfect database from the get-go, because most of the time there's an existing structures that you have to update and change. Anyway, and
to stack the windows, you right click on the title bar and says show.
Okay, so we're moving on. The age of the car should be a derived data. How would this be achieved? Okay, firstly, what is the term derived? Derived means it will be calculated from an existing field. So it would take today's date and subtract the date of the car. Well, technically, if we take a look at the fields here, it's year of the car, right? Yeah. So to take today's year, the current year is probably a better word, current year, and subtract the date of the car. So the idea is it's taking the current year, subtract the year of the car. So the 2 marks would have been the year of the car. Or what you could say is to subtract the year field of the car. So I think that I'd rather you actually say the year field being the appropriate term there. So a derived field means that in your statement you would actually calculate or achieve what is happening there. Now, your next question, it talks about the design of the database to be as efficient as possible. Design the database as efficient as possible in this scenario. Now, this is where it can get a little challenging, but if you take a look at this, basically all you're doing is you're trying to separate everything into its unique entity, and everything should be able to refer to anything else. So for example, if we take a look at vehicles sold here, technically vehicles sold, this is a foreign key to the VN here, isn't it? So this has kind of already been separated out a bit. So vehicles is by itself, if we look only at TBL vehicle, is the TBL vehicle completely normalized?
What is model 3?
Now,
because it's repeating.
there's no repeated data. There is a primary key field. Now, if we look at ODO is responsible on the vehicle VIN number, because that's obviously ODO does directly retain. Make is also, this is what make it is. You could argue model is then dependent on make, but this is the car. So in this scenario, I don't know if I would separate those out.
There's a Ford Model S and a Tesla Model S. So.
Yeah, so you technically, but what I mean, so it's not dependent on make. You could say that model is dependent on this is the vehicle's model. This is the vehicle's year. It's not dependent out. So everything here is dependent on the vehicle number. So all of these are fully dependent. ODO is fully dependent on vehicle number. Make is fully dependent on. So my TBL vehicles is already right. So what I could do is actually literally, okay, because I'm lazy, you guys can't do this, but you could literally go copy paste, and that would give you some marks because now your vehicle is completely normalized. I already gave you that. But now, if we take a look at our next scenario here, contact and name is our is also, that's got to do with sales agents, but vehicles sold and vehicle amounts got to do with the sale. So this contact is dependent on name, but a vehicle is sold and that is dependent. So technically I've got 2 different tables in there at least. I've got my sales and I've got my sales agent. So I know that I'm going to have a table called In this case, I was using the convention TBL sales agent, and then I'd also have a TBL actual sales. Okay. Now for my sales agent, for one, here we put together Jason Keefe. Now this is considered it's called, if we take a look at our name here, this field is not atomic, which means that its entry is in its smallest form possible. Because you might need to work separately with the surname and the first name. You don't want to put them as the same. So this is not atomic. So we know we want to separate first. Do you guys prefer the capital letter method or the underscore method? So we know we want first name and last name to be stored. But now, are either of those, and we obviously want contact, because that was also in there. And this would be the exact same as what we've mentioned previously, and it's got all the fields in there. But now, does first name uniquely identify, or does last name uniquely identify? No. And technically, you could put both of them, but technically, I'm not the only Craig Bradley in the world. So I would suggest you put down an ID field, and you make the ID field the unique identifier for that person. You could also potentially argue that maybe the best unique identifier would be contact. However, logically speaking, it could be indexed by this. So in other words, you could logically search for the person by that. But ID would be a more correct use of. So you could index. Do you guys understand what I mean by index?
When two people have the same phone number.
It could, if for example it's a company and there's multiple sales agents, they run from home and there's a wife and work there, whatever. But so that's why contact technically you shouldn't use as its primary key, but you should be indexed by that, which means you can search for it by that. So if someone comes in, okay, if this was a client and someone came in and you want to search for this person, you ask for their cell phone number, which most people remember better than they remember their ID number or whatever it might be. If you don't know your ID, yeah. Anyway, now the sales itself, you've got a couple of things. Firstly, you would have the VNFK. Now VNFK means the vehicle number foreign key, which means that this field is referring to the vehicle which is being sold. Do you guys get that? Now the second thing you would have is you would have amounts that the vehicle is sold, and also you want to keep track of who sold that vehicle, so you would have a sale agent FK. Now which field will the sale agent FK refer to? The ID field. You guys get that? You would always refer to the primary key field of the other table. So in which case in this scenario I should have actually called this sale agent ID. In this case I could have said here sale agent ID FK, just so that they know it's a bit clearer identified that they are actually referring to the sale agent ID. Do you guys follow this? Now remember, how do you present the fact that a field is primary key? You underline it. Now, other than those two things, we also wanted the date of the sale, didn't we? So date of sale. Now out of these fields here, is there anything in combination that could uniquely identify this record? Can you guys see anything that would uniquely identify this? That was a good answer. Mitchell gave the fact that you could technically use the vehicle FK and the date of sale as being unique, because you're not going to have two sales of the same vehicle in the same day. However, I wouldn't, because there might be a scenario where a guy drove it off the parking lot, changed his mind and brought it back, and then someone else bought it or something, who knows. But it could be an illegality thing where it had to be recorded twice for whatever reason. So generally speaking, I wouldn't like using that as a primary key, because it would be also difficult to refer to. Like you wouldn't be able to search for it easily as being a primary key, because like I can say this is your reference number, you've got this, and then the date. I would actually give it a sale reference or sale ref number, and that would be an automatically generated number which your database would keep track of. And some not many scenarios a composite key does make sense, but yes, and this would be your answer here. Now the way I would mark it, which is also another important thing, is I would mark for all fields present would be, for example, a mark that would be awarded. I don't know if this is how I set up the memo for this one, but I could, for example, give it like a format. In other words, if you presented it, because in your instructions on your top of your test, when you write out tables, you're meant to present it in a proper format. And the format that it should be is this. The next mark would be is that no PKs So logical PKs. What I might do is for logical PKs, I'll reward 2 marks, and for every mistake you made with regards to, okay, do all fields have a primary key, or all of them logical, pretty much. Does that make sense? So what I might do is I might go to the fact that, oh, hello, Control Z. I'd say all tables have a PK, and I'll make that with 1 mark, and then, oh, sorry, and then I would say all PKs logical or unique. So does that kind of make sense? So far that's 4 marks. Then I'd look at no PDs, so partial dependencies. There were no transitive dependencies in the get-go. So I'm not going to award a mark for that because there's nothing, no partial dependencies really to remove, is there? Yes, there is. There's actually, this is a transitive, there's no PKs, there's only a transitive dependency. Do you guys see that? Because vehicle amounts refers to vehicle sold. So that's a transitive dependency. So these two are transitive dependent. But there's no partial dependency, so you're technically not removing any partial dependencies from what you've been given. But actually, I might still do that because I don't want you to accidentally sit there and give a PK, transitive dependency. So I would probably say no partial dependency, which would also be worth a mark. So then I might delete the mark for format. So I'd assume that then you would be the correct format I might logically put out. Well, actually, technically that's 6 marks. But the reason why I would delete the format one is for the fact that I think what's more important than format is that your foreign keys work. If Ks work to allow your relationships to actually ensue. Does that kind of make sense? So that's how I would it. So I don't mark how close you get to the solution because quite frankly you might think of it in a completely different way. I'm going to analyze your table or your solution. I want to say, are all the fields present? Did you include everything that needed to be included in the scenario? Potentially you might not be given. Here we got given Tom, Dick, and Harry's solution or Frank's solution, whoever's solution. You might just be given, here's a scenario, come up with a table, database design for it. Do you guys get that?
Fine.
Now, but in the other scenario, you might look at a different, you might look at it differently and go through somewhere completely different. So I'll just analyze your table and check how close you came to a third normalized form table. And for another alternative things here, just a note, I would deduct a mark if not in format and if did not
Use font size.
atomic yes, font size not non-atomic. I think I would have in the allocation of this I potentially removed this mark and I would have said non-atomic. This makes more sense to me when I've designed it, but I can't remember when I created this test. I would have given a mark for non-atomic, which meant that your name of your person was separated to first name and surname, so you identified that you needed atomic fields. And then I would have deducted a mark if not in the same format and if missing any fields. So if you forgot any fields or it was not done in the correct format, a mark would have been deducted. Only 1 mark for each of those possible errors. Does that kind of make sense? So that's how it would have been marked from there. And do you guys see how I came up with that solution? I identified the unique items within the scenario. I then made sure that each unique item had a relationship if they needed it, so foreign keys, as well as had a unique identifying field. And then everything was atomic. So that's how you sort of go about it. Now, the next scenario, the next question says, list foreign fields from the table you have designed above. Oh, okay. So where I said foreign keys worked, I actually marked the foreign keys here. So I allocated these 2 marks for the foreign keys here. That's actually quite clever. So in other words, in this, foreign keys worked. You could have, yeah. List the foreign keys of the tables you designed above by giving only the field name and whatnot. I want to leave that the way it is because it could be given as an own identity. But here you would have said VNFK will refer to the VN of. Okay, do I need to do this? Field of table TBL sales will refer to the VN field of TBL vehicles, thank you, and sales agent IDFK refers from table TBL sales will refer to. There's 2 marks given here for your foreign key. I probably would have removed this mark for the foreign key, and then I would have put in here rather format, and then I would have only deducted marks if missing fields. Does that kind of make sense? Because I then awarded that letter. Now it says there, what is referential integrity? Now this has got a bit to do with, and I don't often ask this because I don't see it as being as important, but it is actually quite important, and I think they do ask it. Is here they ask about the idea of relational databases and some more database concepts, and they can ask this because it is something that you also need to be aware of, that your RDBMSs or your relational or your database management systems have certain items or components that they can set, or attributes they can set. Now, referential integrity, it refers to the fact that you cannot refer to a field that does not. I've lost my train of thought. Cannot refer to a field that does not exist. Okay, to explain this, let's say I made a sale of a vehicle. If you enforce referential integrity, that vehicle must exist in TBL vehicles for me to make the sale. Does that make sense? So the reason why you do this is to ensure data integrity, and that the vehicle that, like, you could probably say, i.e. the vehicle when sold must have full record in the TBL vehicle class. So you guys get the purpose of having to do that. And that's referential integrity. It is an important concept because you don't want to have it referring to stuff that doesn't exist. This is the end of this test that was done. We actually did the memo with associating the ticks in under an hour, so I think that's pretty good going. So I think you guys can, yeah.